Chris Huckins and Michael Smith are Bigfoot investigators with the Pulaski Research Group, which is based in Missouri. Last October, while they were out on a night investigation in their favorite research area, they had a terrifying encounter with a cryptid they wished they would have never encountered. Chris and Michael, welcome to Dogman Encounters Radio. How are you?
Doing good, Vic. Glad to be here. Well, doing good. Thanks.
Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. All right, guys, before we get started, please give us a brief bio on yourselves.
Well, my name's Chris Huckins, co-founder of Pulaski Research Group in mid-Missouri. Been a Bigfoot enthusiast up until around 1989 when I saw my first Bigfoot back in Washington State, and been an avid researcher ever since, especially after finding out there's actually Bigfoot here in Missouri. And we're very pragmatic, very no-nonsense investigators, and it's our passion. It's not just a hobby, it is our passion.
How about you, Mike?
My name's Michael Smith. I'm basically the old duffer in the crowd. My first encounter with Bigfoot was, I think, in like 1978. And it's just sort of been a thing since. I've spent a lot of years as a paralegal doing accident investigation and that sort of stuff. I've been a professional photographer for a long time as well. So observation is kind of one of my things, as it is with Chris. Okay, we got together 3 years or so ago and discovered we had a mutual interest and discovered we had a subject for that interest here, and we've been kind of out in the woods ever since.
That makes really good sense. Tell us about the chain of events that led you to being at the location of your encounter.
It was our primary area for quite a long time. We kind of discovered it on accident on a day hike through the woods and saw little signs, so decided to go back and had a whole lot of activity, including 2 Class A sightings that particular night. And we would go back every opportunity we have, mostly on full moon weekends when, the light is so much better. And that's basically why we were up there that night. It was full moon weekend, and we were up there as per norm, doing our normal investigation.
Well, like Chris, our normal routine at that point was to sort of build a fire and sit around and talk for a while. And we discovered early on that Bigfoot apparently really likes music. Chris plays guitar, and he'd sit there and pick on the guitar a little bit, and they would begin to approach us. And that's what we were doing that night. And initially, I saw something move down the hill and went to follow it, and when I got down the hill, discovered it wasn't what I originally thought it was.
I'd say it wasn't. Being Bigfoot investigators, you purposefully go out into the woods at night in an attempt to have encounters with Sasquatches. If you don't find the idea of interacting with Sasquatches scary, it's safe to say you're not faint of heart. You're obviously not the type of guys to jump at every sound you hear at night in the woods.
Interacting with Bigfoot isn't scary. It's intriguing. It's fascinating. It's fun. When we had the encounter with the Dogman, it completely rearranged that to where every noise in the woods was scary. For a while, it was very scary for us.
For those people that don't believe in dogmen, that don't think these things are out there, these people, some of them think, and I've received email on this, some think that it's just a case of mistaken identity. It's either a Bigfoot that someone didn't see clearly and they thought somehow it was a dogman. I've received other comments about it possibly being a wolf that was standing on 2 feet, that was misidentified. For people like that, what do you say?
The first thing I would say is that until that night, Dogman was not on our radar at all. And for me, that's something that I considered a myth, a misidentification. I had no concept that such a thing ever existed. Well, my mind changed, but I can understand that because that's where I was until this happened.
That's exactly the way I felt. I always felt Dogman was a misidentified bear or Bigfoot. I'm just completely brushed every YouTube encounter, every sighting that I've read about, I just completely brushed them off. This night completely changed my mind. And if there's any disbelievers, you know what? I don't care if you're disbelievers or not. We're very pragmatic Bigfoot investigators. A whole lot of experience between the two of us, and we've got a group behind us that have, if not the same, more experience in investigating Bigfoot. And this particular night threw a wrench into the gears that none of us, including ourselves, we still question ourselves, but we know what we saw, and conferring with each other, everything matches up. There's no difference between the sightings of that night that we had between each other. None whatsoever.
And I would say, you know, in terms of the way we approach Bigfoot research, I mean, I make it sound like kind of a game, and it is in one sense that way. But we also have a very pragmatic approach. I mean, we try to verify everything we can. If we find what looks like it might be a track, we don't just assume that just because it might be that it is. I mean, we take measurements, we look for toes. Not every wrinkle in the leaves is Bigfoot footprint.
Yeah. Not every jumble of leaves is a structure.
Right.
But
and we see a lot of stuff and dismiss it as just stuff.
Yeah. We will dismiss it before we verify it.
Exactly.
Touching on the topic of disbelief, I think that one of the biggest reasons why people are so terrified when they encounter these things is the disbelief factor. Bigfoot's all over the news. There are so many shows out there about Bigfoot, but with regards to dogmen, it's just something that very few people have heard about. So when they run into one out in the woods,
right.
I think it's that whole disbelief thing that shocks these eyewitnesses to the core so much. You feel for these people. They have been so traumatized by their encounters, and as they share with me the effects, the things that they can't do anymore that they used to take for granted, they can't even take the trash out without being armed. And some of these people don't live exactly right on the edge of the woods. When you hear about things like that, I never realized that that would be a part of this whole experience.
I can understand that because it was, for me, a very profoundly frightening experience. At this point, I don't carry it quite to that extent, but
before our initial dogman experience, it was fun. After our dogman experience, we've been very hesitant and very observant to the point where it used to be fun, but we keep on going because we want it to be fun again, and it's finally becoming to be fun again. That's how it felt to us. Yeah, I mean, it took away that fun factor for quite a long time.
Yeah, and just frankly, it did. I mean, it took us a while to go out in the woods again. You know, we finally did, but there was a pretty fair period of time where we didn't really want to go out there.
And we still won't go out unarmed. Ever. Again. And that, to me, is a detriment to our Bigfoot investigating. You know, it really is.
Well, I don't think anyone can blame you for wanting to be armed out in the woods after what you two have been through. I think we've kept the listeners waiting long enough. Let's jump headlong right into the details of your encounter.
We were doing our normal thing, which is sitting around a campfire, guitar, that sort of thing, and just sort of watching. On this hill we were on, there's sort of a fire break that has been cut there, sort of on the edge of the national forest. And I heard noises off in the woods, and then I saw something move across that fire break that at the time I took to be a Bigfoot juvenile. And I got up and walked down the hill to look for it, which is something I would typically do. And I got a ways down the hill, and I heard noises off to my right in the woods. And then I could see something sort of moving, and then this head popped out at the tree line, and, you know, I was expecting to see Sasquatch, and I'm sort of standing there looking at this, going, now wait a minute, this has a long snout. Sasquatch don't have long snouts. And then I'm going, wait a minute, this thing has pointed ears, which they don't have. Then it sort of curled its lip up and bared its teeth and snarled, and I did something that I almost never do, and that's turn around and move as fast as I can back to the campfire. And at that point, I think Chris was probably fairly convinced I was nuts. I couldn't even really tell him what I saw, other than I said something like Bigfoot don't have snouts. I was stunned enough that I couldn't even really describe it to him.
At that point, he literally did come running back into camp. Mike he will go off, and I will wait 5 minutes and then go follow him. He'll go off in the woods, and we generally go without lights and all that, but he came running back into camp. That afternoon, I had just bought a new handgun. I bought a .40 caliber handgun and 3 clips and loaded with hydroshock ammunition. And he come running back into camp and explained to me what he saw. And I said, no, that can't be. Mike is my best friend and my partner. He's not going to tell me a lie. So, okay, the very first time I've ever had a weapon out in Bigfooting, I happen to have a handgun. So, all right, I pulled the handgun out. Let's see that this thing fires. I fired 1 shot in the air. And then we heard movement. As soon as I shot that shot in the air, as soon as we heard it, off to the northwest, which is to the right side of the fire break, we heard bipedal movement coming towards us to the side. It came out of the brush. We both had, at that time, trigger-operated spotlights. We both had them in our hands because we were back at camp, back at the truck. We both dug them out, both spotlighted. A dog hindquarter came out and midriff came out. I said audibly, my name is Chris Huckins. I'm going to fire this weapon at you if you do not identify yourself at this moment. And I waited 3 to 5 seconds, fired a shot. It retreated back in the woods. I know I hit it in what I could see, which was a right leg and midsection. It retreated. We could hear it walk and circle around a little farther up the trail. We followed it with the sound and the light. It came back in. I fired again, hit it in midsection with completely identifying myself, telling it, if you do not identify yourself, I am going to fire. And I am a very good shot. Mike can verify that I am an excellent shot.
I will vouch for that. And, I mean, you know, we knew it wasn't Bigfoot at that point. And
yeah.
We were thinking, you know, maybe a person fooling around because, you know, we know people who think we're silly about the Bigfoot thing. We said, okay, you know.
Maybe up there screwing with it.
Yeah. And we wanted to make sure nobody got shot.
This thing came around again growling. It was 30 foot away, completely out of the wood line on 2 legs, approaching us. We both had spotlights on it. I fired again. I hit it in the chest. Saw the meat part. Saw bone. Heard the bullet hit. It retreated back in the woods. We could hear it running through the woods, fall down, and continue running all the way down the woods. We broke camp, doused the fire as best we could, as best as that we wanted to spend the time doing so, and got out of there. And that was that night.
I can tell you in all honesty, at that point I was absolutely petrified. I mean, we're both fairly experienced in the woods. I'm more than fairly experienced in the woods.
We're very well experienced in the woods.
You know, I've encountered mountain lions and bear. You know, and Bigfoot, I've encountered a lot of things out in the woods.
I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I'm from the home of Bigfoot.
Nothing has ever scared me like that. I don't frighten easily.
Guys, before we go any further with the details of the encounter, I want to clarify some things on its appearance with what you saw. When you saw it standing there and fired at it, I take it you must have had a very good view of what you were shooting at. How close was it to you again?
At the first sighting, it was probably about 40 foot, 45 foot, but it was not a Bigfoot. It was not a man. That's all I can say. You know, it was not supposed to be living. It was a upright, bipedal, canine, lupine, whatever you want to call it, haunted. I have 6 dogs. This was a dog on 2 legs.
I would agree. I mean, appearance-wise, there was really no question. I mean, the typical sort of hind leg curved hind leg that a dog or a wolf would have. When it came out of the woods that last time, it was using one of its forearms to part the trees out of its way. So it was very definitely walking bipedally. It wasn't like a dog standing on 2 legs. But I mean, very, very, I want to say lupine, more wolf-like appearance to me than dog. But elongated snout, pointy ears, very, very dog or wolf-like eyes. Yeah. And, it was curling its lip back the way a dog or a wolf would when it's angry and baring its teeth. And I had very clearly spotlighted at that point.
And that's how we knew I hit it right in the chest.
Yeah, because I was making sure that I gave Chris a good target. And at that point, Chris is saying about 30 feet. I think it was actually probably a little closer than that. I'd say more like 25, but at least in that vicinity.
That's awfully close. Close enough to get a really good view. Before we go any further with the details, I just want to clarify something. I've gotten quite a few reports of what are considered to be dogmen that have a canine appearance like what you're describing, that look like wolves that are standing upright. Also received quite a few reports of dogmen that have more of a primate type structure. They've got more of a man-like leg structure with knees that are pretty similar to what a man would have, for example. Just to clarify, what you saw had a leg structure without the knees that you would expect a Bigfoot or a man to have.
This was a dog walking on 2 legs. It did not make any biological sense to me.
And the thing is, with Sasquatch, I mean, they have a very definite body type. Broad-shouldered, broad-chested, broad around the middle, massive limbs. And this was,
this was 6 foot, 150, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
It was thin. It was a dog standing on 2 legs.
And very, very sort of barrel-chested, and
you could even see the nipples.
Thin around.
And it was a male.
Thin around the middle the way a dog would be, and the legs very definite. Yeah. But, for me, it's like I'm sitting there the entire time going, no, this can't, no.
This was a nightmare. Completely unexpected nightmare.
And, if Chris hadn't been there and he hadn't seen it at the same time and seen the same thing I'd seen, I would have thought that I was, had gone felt and was hallucinating. Because like I said, this just was not on my radar at all. I had read about dogman encounters, and I always just dismissed them as pure myth. Same here. Made no sense to me at all. So, yeah.
Just to get into the physical description before we get to what happened next with your encounter, it was 45 feet away from you roughly, and then it moved in, stalking you to a distance of roughly 25 to 30 feet, you said, and that's when you fired on it.
Well, we could hear it moving walking bipedally through the bush. We could hear it. And then it came out of the tree line at about 30 foot. That's when I hit it in the chest. You know, you know, Vic, I mean, it's scary. I saw the bullet hit. I heard the bullet hit. I saw the bone. I saw the meat. I saw everything. I hit it right in the chest, in the lungs, in the chest.
And you know, if you've ever been, if you're a hunter or if you've been in the military or whatever, and if you've ever heard a chest shot hit, it's a very distinct sound, and there's no doubt in my mind that that's what I heard.
Yeah, there's immediate whoosh and a gurgle.
Yeah,
and that's what we both heard.
The idea of it maybe being a wolf or something like that, temporarily up on hind legs, you know, I would love to think that, but
yeah, so would I.
I really can't, because like I said, when it came out of the woods, it was very definitely on two legs, and it was using a forelimb to part the trees out of its way. After Chris shot and hit it, and it went back into the woods, it went back into the woods on two legs. It didn't drop to all fours and run off. One other difference, too, I mean, Sasquatch, they don't have a coat. They don't have a pelt. They have hair.
They have hair.
Like we have hair. This thing had a pelt, a coat, like a dog or a wolf would have. So a very, very big difference there.
There's a lot of friction in the cryptid community about the whole, is it a canine type of cryptid or is it a primate type of cryptid? It's my belief that there are two different cryptids running around out there. One that looks like what you saw, a canine type, and one that looks like a primate that's commonly referred to as being a type 3.
We know what a Bigfoot looks like. Mike's first sighting was in the late 70s. Mine was in 1989 on the side of Mount St. Helens. And then together, we know what a Bigfoot looks like. We know their facial features. We know their body build. We know everything physical about them. This was nothing like a Bigfoot. It's nothing like a hominid. This was totally canid. Totally canid.
In answer to your question, no, there was no ape-like humanoid appearance in any way, shape, or form.
No, this was a black wolf or a very large dog walking on two legs.
Did you ever see that creature walk on four legs? It sounds like it was always on two legs whenever you saw it.
We never saw it drop to four, no.
No. We did find evidence of it going to four legs when it busted through, and it was very evident where it busted through a bush line, and then we found tracks right on the other side of it in soft dirt.
Where essentially it fell.
Yeah, it fell down.
And after Chris shot, I mean, we didn't go chasing it through the woods in the dark. We weren't about to do that.
We did that the next day.
But we could hear it after it went back into the woods. We could hear it fall. We could hear a crashing noise. And the next day when we went back to track it, we found a place where it looked like it had probably tripped over a fallen tree and sort of thrashed around in the leaves for a little bit. But then after that, when we tracked it beyond that point, the tracks we found were bipedal. Yeah. No indication that it was walking on four legs.
Wow, that's interesting. When it was that close, when it was 25 feet away as you fired on it, what color were its eyes?
Amber.
Yeah.
Just like a dog's eyes.
Yeah.
It looked, I mean, the eyes looked like a dog's eyes. It was snarling. It had huge canines and a long snout. Just like if you've seen Alaskan timber wolves and the black wolves. Picture that, standing on two legs. That's what it looked like. Yeah. And it was pissed off and hungry.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind, too, we're in south central Missouri. We have a few red wolves here, but they're very rare.
Yeah.
We do not have timber wolves, really big wolves here at all.
No, we don't.
And this was, I would say, too big to even be a timber wolf, just frankly.
Yeah. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and there's a lot of people back there that live in the Cascades or in the coastal range that raise wolves as pets. This is bigger than them. It's 6 foot tall, about 150, 200 pounds. and nothing like a Bigfoot. Nothing like a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I would have to say that the basic characteristic for me was that it appeared so malicious, so aggressive. I mean, I was thoroughly convinced that this thing wanted to hurt us.
Yeah.
No doubt in my mind.
It was stalking us.
I think actually in the beginning, what I first saw that I thought was a juvenile Bigfoot, I think probably was. And I think it was probably stalking that because after Chris shot it and it moved off, then we saw one of the juvenile Sasquatch come out of the tree line and cross the fire break at the other end back over to the other side into the woods. But I think it was originally stalking that juvenile and we interrupted it. And then we became the target. I have no doubt that we were a target. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Chris and Mike. You're standing there 25 feet away from something that is about 6 feet tall, about 150 to 200 pounds in weight. It's black, it's snarling, it's something out of a nightmare in both the way it's acting and the way it looks. From its appearance, standing there looking at it, were you psychologically saying werewolf? Or what was your mindset? What were you thinking at that exact moment?
Self-preservation.
Yeah.
This thing was not a Bigfoot. It was not one of our Bigfoot. It was not a man in a suit. It was not a man in a costume. It was something that I cannot fathom because biologically, to me, it does not make any sense. Why is this in front of me?
And I mean, you know, in the back of my mind, multiple things were going through my head. I mean, the basic thing was my perception of threat, and that's what I was focused on.
Yeah.
That and keeping it spotlighted so Chris could shoot it. But, you know, yeah, I mean, the whole werewolf thing, yeah, it crossed the back of my mind, but it wasn't the focus of my attention at all.
The focus of our attention right then at that moment was self-preservation.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this thing was stalking us, it wanted to kill us.
In one sense, I had this attitude that this can't be real, but it's coming after me, you know. So it was more like, do what we have to do to take care of ourselves and figure it out later.
It's a living nightmare.
Yeah,
exactly.
It sounds like it. Carrying on with the encounter, guys, it started out about 45 feet away from you. You couldn't see it very well at that point. It came closer to the point where it was about 25 feet away or so. Chris shot it 3 times, the last shot to the chest. You saw the impact. You saw the effect of the bullet. It turned and it ran. It ran away on 2 legs, you said. Then what happened?
We heard it.
Yeah, we could hear it moving through the woods.
We could hear it crashing all the way down the hill and into the canyon. At that point, we said, you know what? We're done. We threw our ice from our soda cooler on the fire, threw everything in the truck, and headed home.
Yeah.
The next day, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we were up there. We measured everything. We went into the woods, and we tracked it all the way down the hill, found tracks bigger than the palms of our hands.
And they were very definite canine.
Very,
tracks.
Yeah, definitive canine tracks.
If not for the imprint of toenails, they were easily the size of a track that a cougar would make. But there was a very definite imprint of nails that you have like with a dog print or a wolf print.
But bigger than the palms of our hands.
Yeah. And I do not have small hands. They were bigger than the palm of my hands.
We also heard it fall down, and we found the place where we could track it through the leaf litter all the way down the hill. We found where it fell down. And we found where it stood up and busted through a big briar patch and then on down into the canyon. And we kind of, at that point when we got to the edge of the canyon, we refused to go any further because we didn't want to go even in daylight. We did not want to go where there were so many places to hide.
It led into an area where the woods and underbrush is very, very thick.
Well, I don't think anyone could blame you on that. Through all this, did the thought that it might not have been alone ever cross your mind?
No. It was so shocking that we were so center focused on this that no. And not only that, before and after, we've never ever seen before or after any sign of it. Even though still we won't go out unarmed.
At that point, I was so focused on what was going on that I probably didn't really think much about that sort of thing.
Oh, I can definitely understand when you've got something like that right in front of you, the last thing on your mind is going to be something else that you can't see.
Yeah, and I mean, there was no other indication. There was no movement, other than there.
Thank God this is a one-time experience so far.
Yeah.
We don't want another one. We really don't.
Absolutely not.
There is a percentage of trepidation that we have going out in the woods.
There's an element of fear that was never there before. And the other thing, I mean, the thing was just so different than anything we had encountered before, even in terms of the way it smelled. I mean, there was sort of an acidic, acrid kind of smell. And yeah, that was odd. I grew up on a farm, so it's a smell I know very well. And Chris does too, but I mean, the smell of hay, which struck me as very odd. And we sort of conjectured after that perhaps the thing was roaming and, burling up in somebody's hay barn or something.
Yeah.
But, it's this very odd sort of, like I said, acrid sort of vinegary smell, maybe urine smell. I don't know.
Yeah. Very dark urine.
That's a pretty common phenomenon. People report that frequently, that they smelled the scent of wet dog mixed with urine, mixed with other smells too. Not quite the same as what I would imagine you would expect from a Bigfoot encounter. Close, but a little different.
No. We know what our Bigfoot smell like. We can almost identify them by the smell. And this was none of them.
Their smell, the males in particular, is sort of a musky kind of odor. Very different, not just sort of acidic, burn your nose kind of
and
thing.
the females, more of a, actually, for lack of a better word, wildflower. That's what our females tied on, eyes to eyes, and what we smelled at that time. That's what we relate to the females. This was nothing like we've ever experienced before.
Very, very different both in physical
sight and smell.
Yeah, physical configuration and smell. And behavior, certainly very different behavior.
Yeah.
We've covered the whole smells side of things. Did you hear it make any sound during your encounter?
It's this sort of low growl, like if you've ever heard a wolf or an angry
junkyard dog.
Yeah, an angry dog. Just sort of this low, gurgly growl.
Before it barks, it's a low growl. That's what we heard.
Yeah, no barking, no howling, just this sort of frequent growl. And like I said, it was curling up its lips and baring its teeth. But basically the way an angry dog sounds.
You know what? In hindsight, I'm thinking the only time it did that is when we had the spotlight on it. Other than that, it was silent, but we could still hear it walking through the woods.
And when I first saw it down in the woods, and it first saw me, it growled.
Yeah.
You said that it was black.
Yeah, black with a white blaze going under its left side of the chest, going under its left arm.
How long was its fur?
It's typical dog. Kind of bare-bellied, thin-chested as far as the hair goes.
But not short hair like a lab or something like that. But
yeah, a little longer than a lab. But
basically like a wolf. Or a collie, something like that. But
shorter than a collie.
Yeah, it wasn't real long. But I mean, the thing that impressed me is it definitely had fur.
It wasn't hair.
Yeah, I may have said that before. I mean, in looking at Bigfoot, they very definitely have hair. They don't have a pelt. They don't have a coat like a dog does. But this was very definitely fur. But yeah, longish, but not real long.
You mentioned that its eyes were amber in color. You can tell a lot about a person or an animal from its eyes. having been that close, been as close as you've been to so many Sasquatch, it's commonly reported that looking at their eyes, you can see an intelligence behind them. With this thing, did you see any hint of intelligence behind its eyes, or was it just uncaged fury?
Purely animalistic hunger.
Yeah, the only thing I saw was malicious.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
it was like a dog ready to bounce at your throat.
Yeah, it's expression, it's the way it carried itself, its demeanor. Yeah. I mean, everything said to me, I'm going to hurt you.
Did you see any eye shine?
No, there was no eye shine. Even though we had spotlights on it, there was no eye shine.
Yeah, the thing of it is, though, I mean, like when I was holding the light for Chris to shoot, I wasn't concentrating on his head, really. I was concentrating on his chest. But no, I didn't notice any eye shine.
Interesting. Well, let's move on to the after effects, gentlemen. What you've had to live through and deal with after having this terrifying encounter.
It's difficult to process. When we left, coming back to Chris's house, we really didn't even talk to each other about it much. And after that, it was a long time. I mean, my oldest son lives with me, and I did eventually mention it to him, but he just sort of went, okay. I mean, he didn't, make fun of me or anything like that. Other than that, the only person I've ever discussed it with is a couple of fellow Bigfoot researchers. And they were actually fairly supportive. I mean, very skeptical, but
like we are.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't laugh at us. But basically, they know us well enough to know that we're not prone to really flights of fancy. So the people I mentioned, the couple of people I mentioned it to, took it seriously. Didn't necessarily believe it, but they took it seriously enough to help us do a little bit of research.
On my end, I'm married, and the first time we went up was the last time my wife ever went with us. Because we had who we call George, Bigfoot, approach her while Mike and I were down the hill in the same fire break. But I really didn't share it with her just because you've seen it, but you don't want to believe you've seen it. Yeah. And we have, there's 6 of us in this group that we entirely trust, and that's Bernie Wall, Don Stockin, Randy Savick, Mike, myself, and Brian Conroy. With this, I mean, they were all very supportive, and they all sent us reports of around this area, and even up in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa, northern Iowa, and they helped us deal with this. We've investigated it, and we've talked to some people and kind of come to terms with it, but, honestly, still, it's right there at that, what, did I really see this?
I mean, for me, I know I saw it, I know what I saw, but I don't want to believe that I saw it, So really, I'm my own worst enemy with that, and trust me, over the year or so that has gone by since that sighting, I have struggled to come up with any other possible explanation. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to, Yeah. The only other people that we've discussed it with, Chris and I are acquainted with a couple that are Native American, one Blackfoot and one Apache. And we did mention it to them, actually separately. And, the first thing out of their mouth was Skinwalker, which I'm not sure that I go there mentally. I'm not sure I can.
I'm a big Tony Hillerman fan. If anybody, reads his novels, I love his stories, and a lot of Skinwalker stuff comes into that. But I always thought it was fiction. But listening to these 2 individuals separately, from different nations, was kind of intriguing and scary, to say the least.
Like I said, mentally, it's a little hard for me to go there. I tend to want some less ethereal, more concrete explanation for things.
I don't believe in lake monsters. Lake monsters can't exist. They have to have a breeding population. A lake monster cannot exist. I mean, that's nature. That's biological. to me, a dog man is not biological. A bipedal dog, no. Their muscle apparatus does not make sense.
It's a very difficult struggle, I think, for both of us. I
They
mean,
can't walk on two legs. Dogs can't.
Yeah, I saw what I saw, and, you know, I have to deal with that. And I haven't been able to come up with any other viable explanation other than dog man, werewolf, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Straight out of a horror film.
But I still, there's a part of me that does not want to accept it. But then there's a part of me that has to accept it. I will say that I'm perhaps, I wouldn't say that I'm less skeptical, but I'm perhaps a little bit more open-minded than I used to be. I'm not quite as quick to dismiss what people say to me as I would have been at one point in time. And I just frankly, with Bigfoot, until the first time I saw one, I would have thought that was foolishness.
After your encounter, how long was it until the nightmares stopped?
They haven't.
They haven't. And honestly, doing this interview tonight, they're probably going to intensify.
They will.
It was very traumatic. I mean, Vic, this was something I never expected, I never wanted, and I never want to see again.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, it simply was not on our radar in any way, shape, or form. Furthest thing from my mind. Not something I would have ever considered. And like I said, the stories that I had, very few stories that I had read, and the very few things that I had heard, I just simply dismissed as mythology.
If anybody goes to our personal website, they will see Mike. He's got a big white beard and long hair. I've got very long hair and covered in tattoos. We do not look friendly. We do not look friendly at all. People fly away from us going to a grocery store. Who in the right mind is going to approach us in the dead of night up on a hilltop in the woods? Well, you know, seriously.
There was just no way in reflection. I mean, at the time you think all sorts of things, but in looking back and reflecting on it, there's simply no way that this was anything human.
No, none whatsoever. It was completely canid or lupine. It was not, it was totally extreme opposite from the intelligence of a Bigfoot. It was not. It was animalistic. And Bigfoot or not.
You know, I've had encounters in the past with mountain lions. And not even remotely the same sort of feeling that I was being hunted or threatened or about to be killed. You know, with the mountain lions I've encountered, it's been like curiosity, warning, you know, but I never felt like prey.
Yeah, this time
and
we were on the dinner plate.
That's the way I would have to put the feeling that this encounter gave me, is that we were prey.
We were on the dinner plate.
Just not good at all.
Well, that's a very common sentiment amongst eyewitnesses. Most of them do report feeling that they were on the menu when they were in the presence of one of these things. So you definitely weren't alone on that.
And I can tell you in all honesty, since then I've done a little bit of research, but I have never talked to anyone else that's had this kind of encounter.
I'd like to.
And I would probably very intentionally so, because I really try real hard to forget it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure I've ever felt that intensely threatened before. I mean, and I've been held at gunpoint, and I'm not sure I felt that intensely threatened.
You were talking about the ramifications of coming on the show. I hate the idea of you opening an old wound, but for that very reason and others, I can't tell you how much I appreciate both of you, Chris and Mike, for coming on and sharing your experience with us. I know it's probably just a matter of time for someone else who has seen one of these things that was less prepared for that encounter than you two were will be able to listen to this podcast, listen to you share the details of your encounter, and listen to other eyewitnesses in future shows come on and share their encounters. I'm hoping that person's going to be able to say, aha, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy and I'm not alone. Other people have experienced the exact same thing that I have. I'm not alone. And the fact that they would at that point realize that they're not alone, I'm sure that's going to have to be a huge relief to them.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope it. I honestly hope it does help, because this is something that we never even fathomed, but we experienced. So we understand the trepidation of people who experience Bigfoot. Okay, well, now that we experience Dogman, and, you know, I don't even want to call it Dogman. I just want to call it a nightmare. But you know what? We experienced it, so therefore we share something in common. So maybe we can make some kind of sense out of it, and also help us in our Bigfoot investigations.
Well, and the thing I would say to people like that is, a year ago, if you had told me that you had had this kind of encounter, I would have thought you were nuts. At this point, I will tell you that you most assuredly probably are not.
No.
For anyone that is thinking about going out into the woods now, unarmed, having experienced what you both have experienced, Chris or Mike, or both of you, what words of wisdom would you have to say about that?
I am very well trained and an extremely good shot with both rifle, shotgun, and sidearm. Make sure you know your target. Voice your target. You know what? Don't shoot a Bigfoot. Please don't shoot a Bigfoot.
Yeah, don't shoot indiscriminately.
Yeah. But, you know what? If you're feeling hunted, protect yourself. Please do. Protect yourself. How many reports are there every year of people going missing? And there's a lot of people that chalk that up to Bigfoot. I'm beginning to doubt that. I really am. All the way through continental North America. I'm very much beginning to doubt that, because our experience with Bigfoot is totally opposite of our experience with Dogman. We've only had one, but you know what? It was so much more violent than any of our accounts with Bigfoot. All the way back to the late 70s. Any of our accounts with Bigfoot. The one encounter with the Dogman is so much more violent. And I would highly suggest some self-preservation, your vehicle closed, if you're unarmed. If you are armed, still keep your vehicle closed.
I'm not so much a firearms guy. I used to be, but after having been in the Army and various other things, I tend to shy away from firearms a little bit. But by all means, protect yourself, you know. And whereas Bigfoot gets my curiosity, and I try to ferret out where it is and what it's doing, if you encounter something like this, go home.
Yeah, exactly. Go home.
Don't hang out and try to explore it.
If you're afraid, go home.
Yeah.
You have no business in the woods if you're afraid. And you know what? That made us afraid that night. And it's made us afraid ever since.
And while have convinced myself to be fairly confident that it's something I'll never encounter again, and I certainly hope I never do, if I ever do, my immediate reaction will be to just leave.
Yeah.
You know,
self-preservation.
It's not something that I have any desire to ever explore.
Yeah.
Because I can't begin to describe to you how malicious, how violent, how intent on hurting us this thing appeared to be.
After running into one, and also knowing at the same time, at any given time, there are so many people out in the woods, unarmed, what kind of feeling does that give you, knowing that there are so many people out there unable to protect themselves, that have no idea that these things might be out there watching them at that very moment.
There's a whole lot of investigators that firmly believe Bigfoot are smart enough not to mess with humans anymore, as they were in the 1800s, where there were so many reports of violent attacks. Okay, nowadays, Bigfoot are smart enough to know if they attack a human being that they're going to call attention upon themselves and their area. With Dogman, it's purely animalistic. So, if you want to go out in the woods on your own, think self-preservation. Protect yourself. Don't go too far away from your vehicle. At the same time, as an investigator, I want to say, collect evidence. If, you get in your vehicle and they attack your vehicle, drive your vehicle home and then check for prints and DNA and anything you can collect on that to make this not a myth, but a scientific fact.
I'm at the opposite end of the pole there. I don't care. My gut reaction is get the heck out of there. One thing I would say, even without the sort of Dogman thing, if you're going to go out in the woods, first, don't go out alone.
No, never go out alone. Ever.
Because out in the woods can be kind of dangerous. I mean, there are snakes, there are, all sorts of things. But take time to educate yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Know what's in the woods before you go into them.
Yeah. It's not a walk in the park.
Yeah, no, it isn't. This is by any means.
We're talking about wild areas and wild animals. But with this thing in particular, my advice is if you have the slightest hint that sort of thing is there, even a glimpse of it, go home.
Yeah. Please do.
Simply go home.
Please do.
Because I'm absolutely convinced that this thing is a killer.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether or not you consider it natural, supernatural, or otherwise, somewhere in between, its purpose is not friendly.
We're food.
Yeah, it's not something to play with.
I'd say not. After your experience, can either one of you go out into the woods as long as you're armed and feel remotely comfortable that you are protected?
I can, because I know what I'm capable of. My son-in-law, who has since picked up the bigfooting bug, as you call it, and I relate to him the wolf hunt encounter. The last time he went out, he kept asking me if I'm armed. It scared him a lot. I know what I'm capable of, but if it acts like a wild animal, I can deal with it. If it acts like a human, I don't know if I can. But so far, our experience is it acts like a wild animal. So you can't protect yourself from it. There's no intelligence there. It's purely animalistic.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to portray to anybody that wants to go investigate this phenomenon.
Well, I guess what I would say about that, I'm slightly different about that. I would hesitate to say that anybody who isn't experienced in, number one, in the woods,
yeah,
and experienced, number two, as a researcher, whether it be Bigfoot or animals in general, something like that. I would not suggest that someone go out just because they're curious and try to document this sort of thing. It really requires that you know what you're doing.
Yeah,
and
it really does.
You've got to be honest with yourself, I think. If you don't,
have some wood crap when you go out in the woods.
Yeah, if you don't have those self-preservation skills, then
you have no business in the woods.
It's not a place for you to be.
Yeah.
And certainly chasing something like this, Dogman or whatever you want to call it, is not a thing to do. It's not a walk in the park. It's not.
This is something that will eat you if you are not prepared to protect yourself.
I have no doubt that it's a killer. My advice is still, if you have even a hint that you're encountering this sort of thing, is get out of it. If you're not a trained researcher, don't try it.
Yeah, please.
It's time to wrap this show up, gentlemen. In closing, you first, Chris, if you have any parting comments to share with the listeners, including hopefully a plug for your research group and your website.
My name is Chris Huckins. I am a co-founder of Pulaski Research Group. We are findable on Facebook. We don't have a regular online site yet, but that's in the works. We are a core group of 6 people who have invited numerous other enthusiasts and investigators. As far as Dogman goes, if you have a sighting, oh my God, please report it to us so we can relate it to Vic. Relate it directly to Vic. As far as Bigfoot goes, we want to see everything you got because we'll show you everything we got. This sighting of Dogman scared us. This is something not to mess around with. If you have a sighting, please document what you can, collect what you can, but do not endanger yourself. Mike?
If you have this sort of sighting, talk to Vic or get a hold of us on Pulaski Researchers Group's Facebook page. Don't feel like you're just losing your mind and you can't communicate it to anybody. I understand what that feels like. At this point, while a year ago I would not have, I think Chris and I are both more than willing to listen at this point. And I think for me, being able to talk to a couple of people and not have them just dismiss me as flat out crazy was helpful.
And also, Vic, we want to thank you for allowing us to be on your premiere show. What an honor, and it's very humbling for us. We'll forego the nightmares just to help you out, brother.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the podcast.
Yeah, we are.
I'm looking forward to your future podcast as well.
Yes, we are.
Well, thank you for those kind words, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Vic, I want to tell the listeners, anybody, look at either of us on Facebook. If you have any questions, any fears, talk to us, because the more you talk about something, the better it is. Talk to us about it. We've seen this thing. We shot this thing. We've cracked this thing. We smelled this thing. We've had all of our senses filled with this thing and all of our fears faced with this Dogman. If anybody out there that doesn't want to go public but wants to talk about it, let us know.
Right.
You know, and not only that, you know what? Let Vic know. He's a good guy.
That's my point. Is there are at least a few sympathizers.
Yeah, there are.
Well, I can't thank you two enough. Like I mentioned earlier, the fact that you're opening an old wound by being so nice as to come on this show and share the details of that horrifying encounter. I really, really appreciate that, and I appreciate your time. That's awfully nice of you. What I'll do is, on dogmanencounters.com, on the resources page, if you don't have your website up and running yet, what I'll do is I'll see if I can't post a link to your Facebook page, and then when your website is up online, I'll just swap that Facebook page out for your website. That way people can always reach you.
Yeah, the Facebook page is just Pulaski Research Group.
Thanks again so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
And you're very welcome. We appreciate it.
We're very humbled at being your opening show, Vic, and we can't thank you enough.
I wanted to have you guys on the premiere episode. I knew right away that that's what I wanted to do. Like I said, thanks again so much for coming on, and please do keep in touch.
All right, right on, brother. You take care and keep on, I don't want to say squatching, but keep on dog matting. You know? Keep doing your thing. Yeah, there you go.
I will do. I will do. Well, thanks again, gentlemen, and have a great night.
All right, you too. Thanks, Vic.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.